We have officially been 1 week through June, and it is now time for some June-O-Ween DIYs and crafts. Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Justina, and here I like to make, create, and inspire fun art things with you through my DIYs. And in today's DIY video, I have a couple of DIYs and crafts that are from a blast from the past, meaning that these DIYs I've made in previous years that I want to share with you just to get a refresher and for the ones who are new to the channel. However, these DIYs and crafts you can do this year by using Dollar Tree items, and they are simple, easy, and really fun to make. But before we get started, if you are new here and you haven't yet subscribed, I hope you do that today. All you have to do is click on that big red subscribe button down below. It is totally free. But don't forget to click on the bell notification so that YouTube can always notify you every time I upload a new video. Plus, we would love to have you here, part of our virtual art family. If you're already a subscriber, thank you so much for clicking on today's video. I really hope you enjoy. But don't forget to do all of the YouTube-y things down below, which is like, comment, share, and now hype up the video. It really does help out my channel. Now, with all that being said, let's just jump right into it and let's art today. For this DIY, you're going to need a canvas, any size, whatever you desire. This one is a 8x8, I believe, and I am just removing it from the packaging. Now, I don't know about you, but I am fairly new to a new technique, which isn't new anymore, but it's called a exploding canvas or a breakaway canvas, and that is what we are going to make today. So I have this fabric that I received from Temu a while back, but you can pretty much use anything. You can even paint the back of the canvas. Now I'm going to use this piece of fabric on the back of my canvas, not the front of it, and you want the image facing towards you. So to adhere down my fabric to the canvas, I'm just using Mod Podge. I am using a really thick layer to really make sure that my fabric adheres down to my canvas, and I'm just using a regular old paint brush to paint on the glue. So like I mentioned before, you can pretty much use any images that you want on the back of the canvas, but make sure that the image is facing you while you are gluing it down, because when you break the canvas later or bust through it, or however you want to describe it, the image will show through on the other side. So as you see here, I just laid the fabric into the glue and I'm pressing down firmly, making sure that all of the glue is touching that fabric that is down on the canvas now. Then I'm adding another layer of Mod Podge right on top of it, but this time I'm adding even a thicker layer because I just really want to ensure that the fabric is attached to the canvas. Then I will place that to the side to completely dry and make sure that it is completely dry so that when you are removing it, it won't peel up from the canvas. Now to remove the fabric from my canvas, I am using an X-Acto knife. Now you want to be really careful that you don't cut through all the way to the canvas part. So there is a lip underneath the canvas where it hits the frame, and that's where I'm sticking my knife in and making sure to go really slow so that I can pull away the rest of that fabric. Once my fabric was removed, we are going to flip around our canvas, and for me, I am going to paint it completely black. Now there is many different ways that you can do this. You can add another piece of fabric, you can also add another cardstock, whatever your heart's desire, right on top, but I just figured I am going to paint mine black. Once my black was completely dry, as you see here, I have my Mod Podge again, and I am just going to add a light layer of that on top of my black canvas. Now with this, you kind of want to go in one direction just so that the streaks on top of your canvas doesn't look too messy. So I am just going in a back and forth motion, as you see here, making sure to get all of the top of my canvas covered, because I am going to cover it using some glitter. Now this is extra fine glitter in crystal diamond. I purchased this at Walmart a couple years ago, and I am bottom at the very end of it. And I know a lot of you do not like glitter, so if you do not want to do this step, you can totally skip it. I just felt like my canvas needed just a little bit more of something, so I added some sparkle. Another thing that I wanted to add to my exploding canvas is this little jack-o'-lantern wooden cutout that was part of a sign from a Dollar Tree. It was just in my crafting stash, so I thought it was perfect and it fit really nicely in the center of that canvas. So as you see here, I am just painting it in this orange color from my apple barrel collection, and I'm just giving it a nice generous coat right on top. Nothing too crazy, nothing too fancy. After I was done with that layer, I did go in with a brown color just to really give it some dimension and also dirty it up a little bit because I like the vintage old look with this, so that is what I'm doing with this paintbrush here. Remember, you can paint your jack-o'-lantern however you want. I just really like the orange for mine. I did place that to the side to completely dry, and once both of our pieces were completely dry, it was now time to attach one to the other. Now to do so, you're going to need a backing. You can always use cardboard, you can always use a piece of wood, whatever your heart's desire. I'm using a scrapbooking paper that I cut down to size but made sure it was a little bit bigger than the actual backing so that it had room for me to attach it down. Now this is going to be the backing for my jack-o'-lantern also, but I wanted my jack-o'-lantern to sit up off of the paper just a little bit, and I'm just using 3 of these orange beads that I had on hand. I just used hot glue to attach it down to the jack-o'-lantern, and I'm going to use hot glue to attach it down to our scrapbooking paper. I did try to make it as centered as possible. That way when you look through the canvas, he will be the surprise that is inside. I did place him to the side really quickly because I needed something to adhere it down to, and to remedy that, I have some of these square beads in my crafting stash that I purchased from Dollar Tree a really long time ago that I am hot gluing in each of the corners. That way when we add our jack-o'-lantern backing to it, we have a placement where the scrapbooking paper will touch the inside of our canvas and you won't be able to see it. Now just a quick side note, I should have painted the inside of my frame and those wooden pieces before I attach the scrapbooking paper. I did not, so I had to go back and paint it in later, but if you're doing this, I suggest painting it now. Now it's time to make the canvas look like it's exploding or busted through, and to do so, I'm using my X-Acto knife again, and I'm cutting through that canvas. I made a long slice, and then I'm making these little triangular cuts here on the side, and then I'm pushing through. This is how it looks, and as you see here, you can see the fabric on the other side that we attach bust through the canvas. Then I took the X-Acto knife and just cut out more so I know exactly what it looks like and had enough to really look like it was busting through. It is really your preference on how far you want to go, but I just kept going until my X-Acto knife hit the wooden frame on the back of it. Now it's time to attach the backing to the canvas. Once again, I am attaching it to those little squares that we glued down earlier. And once again, I'm just using my hot glue gun, adding a little bead of hot glue to the square and pressing down my scrapbooking paper. You're going to need to then flip your canvas around and decide how you want to place your canvas onto itself. Now I'm just using hot glue once again to hot glue my canvas pieces back onto the canvas, and as you see here, I'm twisting and I'm pulling all different directions to really make it look like it is bursting out. I liked that I twisted some of those pieces, and it just looks like the little jack-o'-lantern is so happy that he is busting out of that canvas. I did add a little hanger to the back of it, but that completes this DIY. Here is how our busted canvas looks like. I absolutely love this. This was really fun to make, and just look how happy he turned out. I would love to know what you think about this DIY down in the comment section below. I am really blown away and I can't wait to make more. Moving right into our next DIYs, I have a couple of old baby jars that I had laying in my crafter stash. And next I have some glittery slimes that I had previously left over from a birthday party that I just think are so adorable. They come in these little cases. I believe I purchased these at Party City if you want to look at the exact one, but you can always find slime at Dollar Tree as well. I also have some of these creepy stickers that I want to use for this project, and I had gotten those from Temu. For the first jar, I have some of this pink slime that I wanted to show you that was really glittery. So I am mixing it a little so that the glitter is incorporated in all of the slime. Now I did use about 3 little packages of the slime and added it to this little clear bowl that I had. And then next I wanted to add a little depth of color. So I went into my stash and had this red pouring paint left over that I add to the slime, and now I'm mixing it all together. It does change the feeling of the slime. It's really hard to describe, but it's kind of more slimy, little less sticky. Next, I have some of these plastic eyeballs that I purchased from Dollar Tree that fit in that little glass jar, and I wanted to see if how many would fit, and only 2 did. So the first thing I did was rip off some of the slime, placed it in the bottom of my jar, and then I added one of those eyeballs and then I'm adding more of the slime into it. That way it looks like the eyeballs are swimming in its goo or whatever you can imagine eyeballs swimming in. I did add more just so that it was nice and incorporated all into the jar, and this one I did place around it just so that it had enough coverage for the eyeball. I wanted my jar to be fully packed with the slime, that way it can hold the props in there nicely and it would give it a nice full look. So I did have to add another slime right on top of it. I didn't paint this one, I just added it on top, and it still gave it a nice effect. After I was done placing all of the slime into the jar, it was now time to seal the jar. Now to seal my jar, I am adding hot glue all on the outer edges of the top lid, making sure to be very careful because it did warm up the lid since it is a metal. Now this will help seal your jar completely. If you do not want your jar to seal completely, you can skip this step. However, I wanted this to be fully closed. That way, if my kids want to play with it, it is nice and sealed. If you do have kids, I suggest warning them about playing with glass because it is very dangerous. I gave them all of the warnings that they needed. Now, I did want to add another level of decor piece right on top of my lid, so I had added this bead down using hot glue. And then lastly, I wanted to paint the lid of my jar black using my apple barrel black acrylic paint. I gave it about 2 coats and then placed it to the side to completely dry. Moving right on to our next little jar. Once again, these are baby jars that I just had on hand. You can find little jars at Dollar Tree if you want a different style or look. I am going to fill this jar up using that green slime. Once again, they do all have glitter in this slime, so I'm just mixing it up at first, placing it inside of my jar, and then next I'm adding these little miniature spiders all into it. Now these spiders I purchased or received from Temu, but you can find miniature spiders at Dollar Tree and also at Walmart. I believe at Walmart it's a better price. You get them for 88 to 90 cents rather than $1.25. So I will continue adding spiders and my slime into the jar until the whole jar is full. After I have all of my slime that I want to place in there full, I am attaching my lid once again using my hot glue gun. Then I want to add another knob to this jar as well, place it in the center using my hot glue gun, and then I'm going to paint it also using my black acrylic paint. I did give it about 2 coats as well, place it to the side to completely dry. Now for my last little baby jar, I am using the blue slime and I'm going to take it out of the package, put it into this little bowl as well. I did use only 3. Now for this one, I did add these little foam beads that I purchased from Dollar Tree a while back. I'm pretty sure they still have them, along with little beads from Dollar Tree as well, and then started mixing it all together. I wanted this to look like it had these little green bubbles all into the slime, and I'm just going to play around with it just so that it was well incorporated. After that was done, I am going to break it off and place a little bit at a time inside of my jar. For this jar, I wanted this to have a little skull in it floating around in these green bubbles, so I placed the skull that I believe I purchased that from Party City years ago. I still have a little bit left over, and I placed it into the center of the jar, placed all the slime right around it, and then I was having a little trouble where I wanted the skull to lay, so I'm just moving it all around. Once again, I am going to seal up the jar using my hot glue gun, place a little knob on the top, and then paint it using my black acrylic paint. Here is all of my little jars. I absolutely love this look, but now it's time to label them. I have these stickers. Once again, I received them from Temu a couple years ago, and they were just slightly a little bit too big, so I am cutting it down using a pair of scissors. This one obviously has a spider on it for my little spider jar, so I'm just peeling off of the sticker, placing it right down onto my little jar here and pushing down firmly so that it adheres down to my jar. I absolutely loved how all of these turned out. Super cute, very easy and affordable to do. This one I found a little eyeball sticker, so once again I am removing that sticker, placing it into the center, and then pushing down firmly. And lastly, I have a skull sticker. Once again, it was a little bit too big, so I did have to trim it down to size. Remove it, place it down in the center, and that completes this DIY. Here is how my little bottles turned out on our little riser that we made earlier. I absolutely love this. I really want to get more slime with more little bits and pieces that I find throughout the Halloween season and make a bunch of these little potion bottles. I think they are absolutely adorable. I would love to know what you think about these DIYs down in the comment section below. Do you like how they turned out, or do you think they're just too creepy, spooky, or not enough? I would love to know down in the comment section below. Rolling right into DIY number 3, I have another terracotta pot painting for you. If you've been following my channel for a while, I like to paint on terracotta pots. It's just a new hobby for me. I absolutely love it. I don't know, something about it is very therapeutic. I did seal my pot this time, and I am going in with my Waverly chalk paint in the color Snow White, and I'm going to give it 2 coats of that paint and wait for it to completely dry. I do also like to paint the inside of my pots, also the bottom of my pots, so that the whole thing is completely covered. And as you see here, this is what it looks like after it had time to completely dry. Just a nice white canvas for me to start painting on. Now for this pot, I really wanted to go a little bit gruesome, so if you do not like bloody things, then you can skip this DIY. However, it's just paint, it's not real blood, and I'm just painting on these little globs of paint everywhere so that it looks like blood splatter. I am using my Folk Art Home Decor chalk paint in the color Imperial Red, which is a nice deep red, and I'm adding it all over the pot. As you see here, I am using a very fine tip paintbrush. That way I could get really small little crack like paint strokes onto the paint. Once again, to mimic paint splatter. I do this first so that I get a base layer, and then later on I'm going to take my paintbrush and flicker it onto the pot so it looks like another layer of dripping. Once again, you will see that later on, and I'm just going to continue painting on those splatters everywhere. Now for the other side of my pot, I wanted to make a hand streaking down, and the best way I knew how to do that was just to paint my own hand. Once again, I am using my Folk Art Home Decor chalk paint in the color Imperial Red, but this time I dipped my paintbrush mostly in water so that it will give me a smearing effect like I'm trying to do here. I then pushed my fingers down more into it so that it can fill up, and then since it didn't come off my hand completely, I then went back in with a paintbrush and filled up all of the lines that my hand created. I thought this was really cool, and it gave it another depth of creepiness right onto my pot. I was definitely not trying to be the neatest, because the worse it looked, the better it turned out. After I was done with my hand, I then dipped my paintbrush back into water, and as you see here, I dripped it onto my pot, and I'm making it drip down my pot. Then I start taking that same paintbrush and I'm starting to flick all of the paint right on top of the pot, once again going in all sorts of direction, just so it gives it another added look of a blood splatter effect everywhere. I do the same thing for the bottom of my pot. Then lastly, I wanted to give my terracotta pot a hidden message, so I'm taking that really thin paintbrush and I'm going to spell out the word "help me" in there. Once I was done writing out my word, I do seal this up using my Rust-Oleum clear sealer, and once that was dry, this DIY is completely done. Here is how my terracotta pot turned out. I absolutely love it. It's different from the usual paintings I do on a terracotta pot, but I just wanted to do something different, something that I usually don't do, and I just love how it turned out. I really loved that it looks really messy and that a crime happened on top of it. However, if this isn't your typical decor that you like, you can always skip this DIY. My favorite part also has to be the hidden message on the inside that says "help me," but I really would love to know what you think about this DIY down in the comments section below. To start off this DIY, you're going to need some sort of shelf or a little box like this to mimic a shelf. You could probably find a lot of these at the thrift store, but I was just going through my kids' stuff and we were trying to donate some things, and they said I could have this, so I thought this would be perfect to make into one of those miniature shelves. The first thing I needed to do though was to take it outside and spray paint it using my Rust-Oleum spray paint in the color black, but it is the flat texture so that it wouldn't be too shiny. I did give it 2 coats of paint, and this is how it looks. There are some areas that I didn't get to, but there's no need to worry because I will cover that later anyways. I just want the majority of this to be black. Now for my shelf, I'm going for a vintage Gothic look, and I wanted to add some depth, so I'm taking my Folk Art Home Decor chalk paint in the color metallic silver and copper, and I'm just going to start adding it to my shelf. I have this old makeup sponge in my crafting stash, so I dipped it just a little onto the metallic paint, and I'm just adding it onto my shelf by dabbing it all over the edges. I really wanted it to look like it was a really old mixture of wood and like metal, so that's why I'm using a metallic paint, but you can use whatever paint that you like, and you don't even have to do this step if you do not want to. Now I'm adding the silver color right onto it, and I'm just using that same dirty makeup sponge, and I'm adding the paint right onto it so that I can start blending the 2 colors together. So, like I mentioned earlier, I was really missing crafting with some scrapbooking paper, so I went through my scrapbooking stash and I just only grabbed grabbed a few of my scrapbooking pads to use in this DIY. These are just a few, and I've purchased these from Michael's, usually when they are on sale, years ago, and I still have a whole bunch in my crafting stash. Now, at first, I just picked out a couple of sheets that I thought would start this DIY easily for me, and I found this one that looks like it is really old and also kind of looks like it was dipped in tea and coffee. I'm going to start off with one shelf at a time. I cut down the piece of paper to the right size, and to add it to the shelf itself, I am going to use my hot glue gun. I'm using hot glue because I wanted to make sure that I can dismantle this if by any chance I do not like it or want to change it up in the future. But as you see here, I am continuing to add more paper on top because I love the layered look. I am tearing the piece of paper to make it look like it was a bunch of old wallpaper in the back of the shelf that was just ripped and old and tearing apart. So that's why I did it. Once again, I'm adding hot glue to the backing and then adding my paper right on top. Remember, you can use whatever glue that you like to just to hold all of your things, but I just wanted to use my hot glue. Once I have those pieces of paper down, I found that this paper in my crafting stash, cut out one of the image like a photo and hung it right here. Now I do change that image a little bit later because I realized it was just too bright for this shelf, but I kept adding things onto it. So I'm adding a little bit more hot glue down right onto the shelf right there, and then adding some moss. You can always find moss at Dollar Tree, and you can also find scrapbooking paper at Dollar Tree as well. I wanted to make some miniature books by hand, so I have some of these letter tiles in my crafting stash. I believe I bought them at Dollar General for about $2, and they had a bunch of letters in them, and I want to cover them using some fabric. So I have this little orange candy sack from Dollar Tree around their Halloween seasons that I just held onto, and I'm cutting it down to size because I really like the orange color that is on there, and I like the texture of the fabric piece. So I'm just cutting it down to size as you see here, and then once again I'm just using my hot glue to attach it down. I'm going to wrap it like a present, so I pull one side and then I pull the other side really taut, and then I'm going to add more hot glue to the edges and then push down the edges like a gift. Then I'm going to cut off any excess that won't really look good so that it was nice and flat and really mimics a book. Now there is a bunch of ways that you can make books. I've seen people use foam board from Dollar Tree, print out images of books, and then attach it that way using glue or even sticker paper, but I really wanted to use things that I had on hand, so I'm just using fabric. You can also look through Dollar Tree's toy sections, and there is sometimes Barbie pieces that has books that you can also paint down and make it look more vintage. I did cover 3 of those wooden pieces, but I only show you the 2, and after I have them cut down to where I like it, then I'm going to attach them onto my shelf. As you see here, the image in the background is different. I found one of those butterflies in another paper pad that I just cut down and glued into the same place. Now, the best way to really make your shelves look interesting is to continue to add layers upon layers. So as you saw there, I glued down a piece of fabric, and then I'm adding my books right on top of it to look like they're stacked up onto each other. Then I'm going to glue the next one to the side where it's leaning up against the shelf. I have this watering can from Dollar Tree's fairy section, and I'm just adding it right on top of the moss. I felt like the background was missing something, so I added another photo which has a beetle inside of it. Then I'm starting to add some buttons that I purchased from Dollar Tree and placing it right into that center area. Once again, I am using my hot glue gun. After I was done with that shelf, it was now time to move on to another shelf. Once again, I wanted my shelf to look like everything was cohesive, so I am using a same piece of scrapbooking paper and adding a little bit of hot glue to the four corners and then pushing down. Remember, you can use whatever scrapbooking paper that you would like to use, and there's so many different themes that you can make your little shelves into, and I just think any theme would be absolutely adorable. After I layered more pieces of scrapbooking paper down, I am adding this little creepy cloth in the center of it just to add another layer of texture, and I am pulling it taut so that it looks like it's spread out. Then I'm adding more moss to the corners on each end just to really give it another layer of depth. Next, I have some of these mini glass jars from Dollar Tree, and I'm pretty sure you can find them right now. They're out all year, at least at my Dollar Tree, so I always grab a couple because they are perfect size to make little crafts. I'm taking that metallic color copper again and that same sponge, and I'm dabbing the paint all over my bottle to really make it look more aged. Next, I have this sticker that has this skeleton hand on it, and I want to place it onto my bottle, but I didn't like the square look, so I then started cutting it into a circle. I didn't like how bright it was either, so I did add more copper paint on top of it to really give it another aged look. And since it was a sticker, all I had to do was peel off the backing and add it to my glass where I wanted it, and I just placed it right into the center right there. Now, this shelf can fit up to 3 glass jars, so for my second jar, I wanted to fill it up with some of these glass beads. Once again, I purchased these from Dollar Tree. They're usually up all year long, but they change their colors throughout the holiday seasons, so I just grab a few every time I see that they change it up. I use these little beads for everything, but I loved putting them in the glass jar, sealing it up and giving it a little shake. It makes the cutest little jingle noise, which was really fun to hear. And for my last glass jar, I filled it up with some foam beads. Once again, I purchased that from Dollar Tree. Now, I did seal all of my glass jars using my hot glue gun and then just adding the cork right back into it. But for my first glass jar, I wanted to add more dimension, so I just took my hot glue gun and started making these little drips all around the bottle. I then painted those drip marks using my Posca paint pen in the gold color, and I just added about 2 layers and waited for that to completely dry. Next, we needed to add the glass jars onto the shelf itself. Once again, adding a nice dollop of hot glue and then adding those glass bottles onto it. Now, hot glue is not a permanent hold, so if I ever want to change this up, I always can, and I can always scrape off that hot glue later. Plus, I do have little ones, and if they want to look and play with these, I wanted to make sure that they wouldn't fall off easily. Moving right into our next shelf, I found this burlap fabric in my crafting stash, and I'm just cutting it down to size and gluing it into place. I really love how I can change up each shelf to really have like a different feeling, but overall, when you take a step back, everything really goes together. After I laid down that burlap fabric, once again, I am going to add some images. I have some of these stickers left over. I believe I purchased these, or I was given these from Temu a while back, and I just have a few left over, and I am making them into little photos. Now, at first I thought I was going to frame these, so I started cutting popsicle sticks at a 45-degree angle, but realized I didn't like the framed look, so then I just cut those popsicle sticks straight and added one on the top and the bottom of it to give it more of a tapestry poster look like they used to have in the medical old movie days, I guess. So after I decided that, I am using a little bit of hot glue, adding it to the bottom and the top half of my sticker here to give it that look. I did go back and stain those using a little bit of brown acrylic paint, and to really give it more of a structure, I took off the sticker part of the back of it and then added more popsicle sticks on top of it to really make it look sturdy. Now, I did go back and add hot glue to those popsicle sticks to really hold everything in place. And now I have a piece of art that we can hang up in our little shelf. I did want it, like I said, to look more of a tapestry, so I'm adding a little bit of jute twine on the back of it for a hanger. Now to attach it to the back of the wall, I am using hot glue, but I wanted the little jute twine to look like it was hanging on a nail. So I took a push pin, cut off the little pointer part, and just used the flat piece to mimic a nail hanging in the wall. I really loved doing this craft. However, it was really harder than what it looks like because a lot of things are really small, and like you see here, I was struggling just a bit because that metal piece got hot with the hot glue gun. So just be careful while crafting. I wanted to make little old scrolls, so I took an old piece of scrapbooking paper, rolled it up onto a skewer stick, and then I glued it into place. I really love this look, and I made about 4 or 5 more to add to our shelf here. While I'm adding more fabric to our little shelf here, if you are new here and you haven't yet subscribed, I hope you do that today. All you have to do is click on that big red subscribe button down below. It is totally free, but don't forget to click on the bell notification to let YouTube know to notify you every time I upload a new video. Plus, we would love to have you here, part of our virtual art family, where we do a lot of DIYs with an artistic twist. I'm really trying to reach 15,000 subscribers by October. If you can help me reach that goal, I would deeply appreciate it. If you are already a subscriber to my channel, thank you so much for being here and clicking on today's video. I really hope that you are enjoying the video this far. If you are, don't forget to do all of the YouTube things down below, which is like, comment, and share it to at least one friend. It really does help. Remember, friends, I do have other socials. I have a Facebook, Instagram, and now a Patreon page that if you would like to become a member, all of those links will be down in the description box below. For my little miniature things on this shelf, I found some of these bones that I have collected through the years. A lot of them came from Dollar Tree, some of them came from Dollar General, and others came from Party City when they were going out of business. As you see here, I am staining each one of those bones using acrylic paint dipped in water just to give it more of an aged look. Then I am hot gluing it down into place. I really wanted the shelf to look like a medical old office where it just has bones everywhere and old paperwork and posters, and I think this part of my shelf is my favorite part of the shelf. I kept adding bones until I liked the way it looked. For our next shelf, once again, I'm adding a little piece of scrapbooking paper in the back of it, and then I had this wooden skull poison shape, I guess you can call it, that I just add to the very back. Then I'm taking some old spider web and I'm gluing it using the crisscross method, which I'm adding a little bit of glue, pushing it down, and then pulling it to the other section. I really wanted this shelf to look like it was a home for a queen spider, so I just kept adding web until it was nice and fluffy. Next, I had some of these wooden cutouts that said spirits, and since this had like a poison wooden piece on the back of it, I just added it to the other side. Then I continued to add more spider web on top of it, and lastly I added our little queen spider here, which is just a little piece of a clip from Dollar Tree. They usually have like 5 for $1.25. I cut off the clip and I'm just hot gluing it down into place. For our shelf below it, I have this vintage looking scrapbooking paper with old books on it, and I hot glued it to a Jenga piece so that it was coming off of the back of the wall just a bit, and then pushed it into place. Next, I added some rub-on transfers and then added this little wooden skull right on top of it. After the skull was dried, it was now time to move on to our final section of our little shelf here. And I am first going to add this little vintage clock that I purchased from Dollar Tree. I purchased these a while back and they're usually in their wooden word section, usually by the sticker area. And I wanted to add a little piece of scrapbooking paper behind it to really make those numbers stand out. Next, I made my own little shelf using popsicle sticks and some of those lettering wooden pieces that I had on hand, cut everything down to size, glued it together, and then just glued it to the back of the shelf. I am going to stain it. Once again, I'm using a mixture of brown acrylic paint and just some water and just adding it right onto the shelves. And with any excess, I remove it with a paper towel. Then all we needed to do was decorate our shelf that we just created. Once again, I found another scrapbooking paper with these miniature books on it. I added it to one of those wooden letter pieces that I've had to really make it pop off of the shelf so it looks more 3D. I have this plastic skull. Once again, I will stain that later, and I'm just adding some greenery in the background. Then I'm adding one of those stickers again. Once again, I did hot glue some wooden pieces on the back of it so it stands off of the back of the shelving to really make it look more 3D. Now for the bottom of my shelf, I wanted it to be a little bit different, so I cut down some popsicle sticks to make it look like a wooden floor, trying to stagger them just a little bit to kind of give it more of that old age look, and then hot gluing it down to place. I did stain those also, once again with that brown mixture with the water, and then removing any excess with a paper towel. I am now taking another scrapbooking paper because it just felt like there was a lot of room, and adding it to one side of that shelf to really make it pop. I used the scrapbooking paper in my last DIY video. If you would like to see that video, I will link it here and down in the description box below. I felt like it still needed a little bit something, so I made another shelf using popsicle sticks that I just cut down to size and now gluing into place. And yes, once again, I did stain it. After I had my shelf up, it was now time to add more things to it. So I have another scrapbooking piece of paper that I cut out. This one looked good. It has a spider in it, and I made it look like a picture frame. I also added this little bat that I made into a little stand and added that onto our shelves. I also made a broom out of scrapbooking paper and a skewer stick, and I'm just gluing that into the corner. I am adding this little pumpkin here, but I realized it just didn't really fit, so I moved that later on. I'm adding some mushrooms, and lastly I do add a vintage cat that is laid on a pumpkin, but once everything was attached, that completes our DIY. I absolutely loved how my little shelf turned out. This is absolutely one of my favorite DIYs that I have done on my channel thus far. Alright friends, I really hope that you enjoyed today's DIYs. Even though this was a blast from the past, these DIYs are super easy and fun to do and perfect for this year to start creating something spooky for the summer season. If you had a favorite, please leave me a comment down below to which one was your favorite. Remember friends, if you are new here and haven't yet subscribed, I hope you do that today. All you have to do is click on that big red subscribe button down below. It is totally free, but don't forget to click on the bell notification notifications so that YouTube can always notify you every time I upload a new video. Plus, we would love to have you here, part of our virtual art family. If you're already a subscriber, thank you so much for being here and clicking on today's video. I really do appreciate each and every one of you being here, but don't forget to do all of the YouTubey things down below, which is like, comment, share it, and hype up the video if you are on a mobile device. Remember, friends, I do have other socials. I have a Facebook, Instagram, Buy Me a Coffee, and now a Patreon page. All of those links will be down in the description box below. Be sure to head over there and check all of those out so you can see behind the scenes and other perks if you decide to become a member. I really hope you enjoyed today's video. I had a blast making this, and I am super excited for the summer season. Thank you all so much for watching. I really hope you enjoy, and as always, I will see you in the next one.